What's his name? Black Samson. What's his game? He ain't got none. Welcome to my dojo. This is KungFuPizzaPrty, and I'm your host, Brandon Knight. And today, for the first film review of 2026, I am here to talk about Black Samson, starring Rackne Tarkington. Here on KungFuPizzaPrty, I seek to deliver high-flying action in 30 minutes or less and serve up some wisdom one slice at a time. I own this copy of Black Samson. It's a part of a blaxploitation DVD set that I have, and when I first watched it like 10 years ago now, I didn't really care for it. I don't really remember why I didn't really care for it. I think as I try to think back at it, I think part of it may have been that it wasn't quite what I was expecting it to be. Seeing how some of the other movies in the set are like Three the Hard Way, Black Belt Jones, like a little bit more like balls to the wall action films, where this one is definitely slower paced by comparison to those. So that would be probably my best guess of like, I just didn't quite know what to expect. But that was like 10 years ago that I watched this movie for the first time, and I was really interested to see, sitting down to watch it again for the show, if my opinion of the movie would have changed 10 years later. And I have to say, yes, it has. The majority of reviews, when you go check out Rotten Tomatoes, IMDb, Letterboxd, which, by the way, if you didn't know, you can follow the show on Letterboxd, KungFuPizzaPrty. You can get an early review of the movie before the episode comes out. If a lot of the reviews by just the general public and the overall scores that these sites give this movie is that it's mid-leaning towards good. And it's funny reading the reviews because whether it's a positive or a negative review, they're basically saying the same thing. Either positively, oh, this film is a good representation of a typical blaxploitation film. Or, on the flip side, oh, this movie is just following the tropes of the blaxploitation action genre. Both are essentially saying the same thing. It's just a matter of tone here. Overall, I think I would agree with the general consensus here of like, it's good. It's mid-leaning towards good. It's nothing necessarily revolutionary, though there are two things about this movie that I really want to highlight here in this review to encourage you all to go check it out. Like I said, I own a copy of this movie. I'm pretty sure I saw listings for it, though, on Tubi and on YouTube as well, so you can definitely go check this movie out if you really want to. Again, I don't really think, as opposed to a movie like Foxy Brown or Shaft, where these are like iconic staples of the genre, this is like if you have the time, though, I think the two things worth highlighting from this film are definitely good enough reasons in of themselves to check it out. First, let me give you the general plot. So, essentially, what we have going on here in this movie is that there is a man named Samson, played by Rackne Tarkington. Tarkington, if you are a fan of 70s television, you have probably seen him before because he was one of those B actors who was in everything. He was on every show, it seemed like, playing a reoccurring role, a supporting character for an episode, whatever the case may be. He actually was originally cast to play Williams in Enter the Dragon, but unexpectedly left the project and was therefore replaced by Jim Kelly, which is really interesting to then play the what-if scenario of what if Tarkington would have stayed on and made Enter the Dragon, because Jim Kelly helps continue to elevate the film. Tarkington, who did not have the same amount of star power as Jim Kelly or as other reviews for this movie point out, does not have the same kind of screen star power as like a Jim Brown or Fred the Hammer Williamson. Enter the Dragon probably would have elevated his career versus him helping elevate the project further. Who knows what Black Samson and the rest of his career would have looked like if he would have stayed on to make Enter the Dragon. It is arguably, you could argue though that the role that he is most known for is playing Elihu in the Danger Island serial that ran during the Banana Splits. And yes, Gen X listeners, I know what all of those words mean because I used to watch the Banana Splits on Boomerang. So he plays the man named Samson. He owns a nightclub in this community, and the local mob is trying to move in on on this community that he cares about deeply and has worked very hard over the years to eliminate crime and drugs from the streets. He's not a police officer, but he has taken it upon himself to watch over the community and to take care of it. And we are introduced to a mob family who there is a central person in this family played by William Smith, who is similar to Tarkington, just a guy who is in a lot of television and films as a B actor, usually playing villains. He is hell-bent on taking over this community and expanding the reach of the mob. And so it's up to Samson and the rest of the community to rally together to preserve their way of life and to keep, violence and crime and drugs out of their community and to push the mob out. That is the oversimplification of this film. Now let's get into some of the specifics, which are the two reasons why I think you should still at some point check this film out. If you've got the time, it is a nice, tight 90 minutes, so you're not gonna spend a ton of time with this film. You can definitely make time for it if it is something you would like to watch. First off, we have our villain. Honestly, this is one of the few times when I am reviewing a blaxploitation film where I am going to say the villain is honestly one of the best reasons to watch this film. First off, because William Smith is just acting his heart out with this role. He's playing Johnny Nevada, Johnny Nada, something like that, and he's not the one running the mob family. It's his dad who's running the mob, and he's the up and coming, I'm gonna take over the family business one day kind of guy, and he is just, like I said, he's hell-bent on taking over this community, and he is just evil. One thing that makes him very different, I would say, from a lot of the other villains I have talked about here on the show is that a lot of the other villains that come up in, Three the Hard Way, Black Belt Jones, for example, they're very one-dimensional. They're fueled by racism, which in of itself is a bad thing, especially in Three the Hard Way, where you have a neo-Nazi group trying to kill off all the African Americans in 3 major cities. That's genocide. That's a terrible thing. But they're very one-dimensional. And in that it's they are just purely racist. Or the mafia that shows up in Black Belt Jones, because the mob pushing in on a black community is actually a common trope, a common story beat that shows up in a lot of blaxploitation films. If you recall, I talked about the mafia in Black Belt Jones is just so stereotypically Italian. Mamma mia! Just very stereotypical Italian gangster film with the bad guys. Whereas William Smith's character feels well-rounded. Yeah, he's a bad guy. He's a racist. But he is just so fueled by self-seeking pride and anger. He basically dislikes everybody, including his lady partner. He is just a very bad guy, and he feels like someone you can actually, as a villain for this film, he feels like someone you can actually sink your teeth into, of oh, you're a bad dude. You actually are kind of complex, but also just so fueled by rage that it's like, oh, what is he gonna do next? Like, he's a little unhinged in this movie towards everyone around him. And what's also interesting about the villains in the story is that early on, the mob boss the head of the mob family here, he wants to take over the community, but they tried talking to Samson, they tried negotiating with him, maybe some light threats. Nothing's really landing. All right, no big deal. We'll just move on to something else. Like, the head of the crime boss family here is like so cool with moving on and like just, all right, well, he's determined, he can have it. Like, no skin off my nose. It's his son, William Smith's character, who is just so like, no, we need it. We're losing face. We're doing all this is a bad image for us. This is just another piece of territory that we could take and extend our power. He's power hungry. He's angry. And his dad is like, dude, give it a rest. Or you know what? Fine. You go take care of it. But when you lose, don't come crawling back to me. And one of the best lines in this movie, I almost opened the show with this one, is that the son, William Smith, is like, you know what? It's going to be a piece of cake to take this town or this community away. And his dad goes, oh yeah? I know a guy who choked on a piece of cake. And that is the last time you see the dad in the movie. That is the last time you see the head of the family in this movie washes his hands of the situation, totally calls it that his son is going to absolutely fail. And that's it. And it's, again, just kind of refreshing. This is just me being a white guy for a second, watching a movie that is not necessarily made towards me as the target audience. It is kind of nice to see, like, oh, this is like, you're a bad guy technically because you're like the head of a mob family, but like in the context of the story, you're good. You understand that, like, oh, this is not worth my time. This is just going to end badly for my business. Like, we're just gonna move on. And I don't know, that was just kind of refreshing of like, it wasn't the whole crime family is gonna be like, we're gonna do it, we're gonna tough it out. It's like, no, actually there's wisdom with age is kind of what's being shown here. Because he even says, the dad says at one point, the youth are just so brash. Like, they're just so wanting to prove themselves all the time. So it's just kind of refreshing to see, like, oh yeah, you're like a bad guy because you're a mob family, whatever. But like, in the context of the story, you know better. And that's encouraging. The other reason why, so the first reason why I think it's still worth going and checking out this film is that you get a bad guy and a context surrounding the bad guy that actually has some pretty good meat on the bones and actually feels very formidable against the protagonist here. Now let's talk about the other reason. If you are not familiar with the blaxploitation films, one thing that is often done is that they will take source material and kind of urbanize it and make it their own retelling of a story. We see that, you think of like when we take, how many times have we taken Romeo and Juliet and put it into different eras of history, right? Like, everyone does this kind of thing. One thing that also happens is that the title of the film will be a reference to that source material. So last year I reviewed Black Cobra, starring Fred the Hammer Williamson, which is kind of taking some of its story and tropes and whatnot from the Stallone film Cobra, or maybe one of the most well-known blaxploitation films, Blackula. Blackula is drawing from Dracula, obviously. So if you're knowing that, then if you're watching a movie called Black Samson, where do you think the source material comes from? That's right, Bible Samson, which for this part of the episode, I am going to be saying Bible Samson and Black Samson just to help keep everything straight. In the movie, Tarkington plays Samson. He is not Black Samson. He is called Samson. But for the sake of this part of the episode, I'm going to say Bible Samson and Black Samson. So one of the reviews I read, and I think one of the other reasons why originally I didn't quite care for this movie, is that if you're looking for a one-to-one comparison between Bible Samson and Black Samson, you're not going to find it here. However, upon this rewatch for this show, if you slow down a little bit and actually think critically, which is part of what I tried to do here for y'all, actually, no, there are many ways that Black Samson draws from Bible Samson. Now, it's not lost on me that people who are listening to this show, though it is on a Christian podcast network, not everybody listening to this show is a Christian, or maybe it's been a long time since you've gone through the doors of a church, or maybe not. Maybe you went for, midnight mass here recently. If you don't mind, I'm going to take y'all to church right now just so that way we can see the two comparisons here. So Bible Samson was a judge. There was a very specific time in Israel's history where anytime they stopped following God and stopped worshiping him and stopped obeying the law, foreign invaders would come and take over different parts of Israel. And when they repented from not worshiping God and worshiping other gods and not following the law, God would send a judge, and this judge would be a military liberator, a co-regent ruler, a spiritual guide to the people, all of the above, not necessarily all of them all of the time, but usually at least those first two, some kind of military liberator and co-regent ruler. Samson is arguably probably the most well-known of all of them. Even if it's been a long time since you've been to church, you probably remember Samson. Because his big thing was, if you recall, God told him as a unique way to worship him, don't cut your hair. And by keeping that commitment, God gave Samson superhuman strength, which I think is the whole reason why we teach kids about Samson, because he's the closest thing the Bible has to a superhero. That being said, when it comes to the heroes of the faith, the heroes of the Bible, Samson's a terrible person. He has a moral compass very similar to Homelander. We really shouldn't be teaching children about Bible Samson, but whatever. Anyway, so Samson has this great strength, and God uses him to liberate part of Israel from the Philistines. Similarly, here with Black Samson, he does not have superhuman strength, but he does carry around this quarterstaff. It's this big honkin'. It's not just a wizard staff like Gandalf or a bow staff. It's got some heft to it, and so that adds on to his already normal human strength. Plus, it also is a little bit of reminiscent of this one time with Bible Samson, where he takes the jawbone of a donkey and kills a bunch of Philistines with it. Two completely different sized weapons, but still kind of this heavy blunt object situation. That, and as I already said, Black Samson is devoted to keeping his community safe and to cleaning up the streets from violence and drugs and the whole bit, and keeping the mob out from taking over his community. All very similar to what all of the judges were doing. Maybe not drugs, but you know what I mean? Removing the foreign invader who is oppressing the people of Israel. And with that, I am no expert, but I am educating myself. And one thing that I have continued to learn about the Black church in America is that sections of the Bible like Exodus, Judges, and the prophets Amos and Micah that deal with liberation, restoring broken institutions, social justice. These are popular, for lack of a better word, sections of scripture, meaningful sections of scripture to the black church in America. And this idea of like a group of people keeping their community safe is not necessarily unique to Black Samson. Came up in Black Belt Jones, came up in Foxy Brown. It's used comedically, but it even comes up in Black Dynamite. Like, this is a reoccurring theme of we are going to liberate our people from foreign invaders, from oppressors, and to keep our streets clean of influences that could be negative to our people. So there's that. There is also the fact that Black Samson has a pet lion in the movie. It is a real shame, I will say. That pet lion never gets involved in chewing up any mob members, which is a shame. That should have happened at least once, or some big paw scratching up someone's face. Never happened. Should have happened once. And out of context, this is going to sound wild if it's been a while since you've heard the story of Bible Samson, but there is a very important part where Bible Samson eats honey out of the carcass of a lion. Now, there are a couple differences that kind of, I think, helps make, honestly, Black Samson a better role model than Bible Samson. Bible Samson has a prostitute lady friend named Delilah, who the Philistines use to like trick him and capture him. Black Samson has a girl, and they do have a bit of an argument over whether they should stay or not in the community or just let the mob take over. But she remains faithful to him, and the mob does send in a woman to work at his nightclub. But he knows from the get-go that she's like a spy, and actually he ends up saving her, kind of, and she ends up like turning away from William Smith, who she's like his girl. So there is that, and also famously, Bible Samson sacrifices himself in order to finally liberate Israel from the Philistine influence. Here, Black Samson actually unites the community together to eliminate the mob. And Bible Samson, he does his thing by like God grants him back his strength, and he literally brings down the house on top of the Philistines. Whereas here in Black Samson, the mob is kind of like trapped in an alley, and the community rises. They're like standing on the rooftop of a bunch of buildings and just starts pummeling everybody with garbage, appliances, mattresses. Like, they clean out the dump and just are like just raining down stuff on top of the people. So again, it's not necessarily like a one-to-one comparison. Black Samson walks away at the end. He lives. But you can see where the influences are at. And I think in a way, he becomes like a better a better Bible Samson than Bible Samson ever was. A few things for you to know, just in case you do go check it out. Yes, you will hear the N-word in this movie. Yes, it has its moments of violence and drug use as well. Probably most important, I shouldn't say most importantly, probably something a little bit different as a trigger warning for sure. There is a brief scene of domestic violence in this film. One of the reasons why this woman who is a spy for the mob turns on them to side with Black Samson is because William Smith starts beating her in a scene. That, and I have alluded to the fact that Samson owns a nightclub. It's really more of a strip club. And you will get not even 1 minute into this film before you see boobs. Like, it takes no time whatsoever. I think I opened this episode with the opening lyrics to the song. I think you may even see the boobies before the song starts playing. So just so you know, it ain't a kid's movie. Like, it's not. I would say there, as I said, there are definitely some trigger warnings here. And, you know, again, I was in a very different place 10 years ago or thereabouts when I first watched this movie. So maybe it was the whole nightclub thing that made me go, well, how can he really be that good of a guy? Because I would have been that snooty white evangelical at one point in time. I have changed. I just crossed myself. And I think it's for the better that I've changed. And now I've started this show rather than earlier. Anyway, so like I said, if you got the time, check out Black Samson. It's got a great villain. It's got this great, like, kind of biblical story going for it, a reminder on liberation and protecting the community. It's got some good stuff to it, and I think it's definitely worth checking out. And Tarkington does a good job as Samson as well. He's kind of this, like, calm, collected, large man kind of looming over everybody, but still just very, like, friendly and kind towards his community. It's a good film. It's enjoyable. But I gotta start wrapping this up. I already picked up one new challenge for this year. I ain't about ready to pick up two. So, thank you all for listening to today's episode. If you haven't yet already, please rate and review this show wherever you get your podcasts. Pass this episode along to a friend. And check out the other great shows here on the Amazon Ministries Podcast Network, like Why I Don't Like, Systematic Geekology, and my sister show, This is Kung Fu Pizza Party. My Seminary Life, where I take you to church more often than I do here on Kung Fu Pizza Party. And follow the show on Instagram at KungFuPizzaPrty, and I already plugged Letterboxd, and check out my YouTube channel, Studio 219, a place for faith and pop culture. I'm working on, hopefully, never mind, I don't want to spoil it. I am hopefully working on a big YouTube video that's different from what I normally do, but we'll see if it's able to come out. I have to have the time to do it. So, but thanks again for listening. This has been Kung Fu Pizza Party, where I have delivered high-flying action in 30 minutes or less for the first time in 2026. Feels good. And served up some wisdom, one slice at